Princess Isabella of Denmark has just celebrated her 18th birthday. Young, confident, in a bright orange dress and with a sparkle in her eyes, but most importantly, wearing a tiara. Yes, her very first tiara. In royal families, wearing a tiara for the first time is not just about jewelry. It is like a boundary between youth and a new role. Adult, representational, almost royal. It is a moment that is prepared for over years, sometimes generations. But who chooses the first tiara for a princess? Why do some receive it at 18, while others only on their wedding day? And what could a modest turquoise tiara or a vanished piece of jewelry suddenly resurfacing after half a century mean? Today we will embark on a journey through the most touching, mysterious, and truly spectacular tiara debuts. Do you know in which tiara and on what occasion Queen Elizabeth II first wore a tiara? Or under what circumstances Princess Margaret shone in her debut, and what mystery she left behind? At the end of the video, I will also show you several unexpected debuts that almost no one remembers, but are definitely worth seeing. So, whose debut turned out to be the most symbolic? Who wore their first tiara earlier than expected? And who remained forever faithful to just one? Let's find out together. Before we begin, please support my channel by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons. Thank you. Princess Isabella of Denmark, the eldest daughter of King Frederick X and Queen Mary, entered adult life as befits a member of a royal family, in an evening gown, with orders and a tiara. But not just any tiara, a tiara with a history worthy of a novel. In her first official portrait for her 18th birthday, she appeared wearing the Turquoise Daisy Bandeau, a family heirloom worn by women of 4 generations before her. At first glance, delicate, modest, even touching, but look into the past and it becomes clear, this choice is no accident. Did you know that this tiara once belonged to Queen Elizabeth II's great-aunt? And the earrings paired with it, according to legend, once adorned Catherine the Great herself? However, legend is not always history. Let's take a closer look in order. The turquoise tiara was created at the end of the 19th century and belonged to Princess Margaret of Connaught, granddaughter of Queen Victoria, a British princess who became Crown Princess of Sweden after marrying the future King Gustav VI Adolf. Princess Margaret was simply called Daisy in the family. And yes, the tiara with 11 floral rosettes shaped like daisies could well be connected to this sweet nickname, although officially it was purchased, not specially made in honor of the name. After Margaret's premature death in 1920, the jewelry passed to her only daughter, Princess Ingrid, the future Queen of Denmark. It was she who received the tiara as a confirmation gift in 1926, and just 2 years later appeared wearing it in her first official portrait in court dress. Since then, the tiara moved with Ingrid to Copenhagen, becoming part of the Danish collection. After Queen Ingrid's death in 2000, the tiara passed to her daughter, Queen Margrethe II, who, despite her own extensive selection of tiaras, wore this one from time to time. Sometimes, with great warmth, she lent it to other family members. For example, Princess Theodora of Greece wore it at an anniversary ceremony in 2012. Later, the piece was exhibited to the public as part of a royal jewelry exhibition. It seemed to be just a museum relic, carefully preserved but rarely worn. But in 2025, everything changed. For Isabella's 18th birthday, Queen Margrethe gave the tiara to her granddaughter. Not lent, not provided for a photo shoot, but officially gifted, symbolically and precisely timed. This gesture was not only one of love and trust, but also of passing on memory, identity, and role within the dynasty. But that is not all. Along with the tiara, Isabella wore turquoise and diamond earrings that her mother, Queen Mary, had worn in recent years. These earrings were a gift from Margrethe on Mary's 50th birthday and, according to family tradition, are connected to Catherine the Great, supposedly once adorning the Russian empress. This claim cannot be documented, but admit it. It is nice to imagine that the history of the jewelry might have begun not just in another country, but in another empire. In the Danish royal family, continuity in jewelry is especially valued. It is important not only what a princess wears, but also where the piece comes from, who owned it before, and what story it carries. When Princess Margrethe turned 18 in April 1958, she received a gift of a tiara made of diamond drops that belonged to her grandmother, Queen Alexandrine, wife of King Christian X. This was her first tiara, and the moment of presentation had an almost ceremonial tone. Her parents, King Frederick IX and Queen Ingrid, did not just give their daughter a piece of jewelry. They passed on a part of memory, an echo of the previous generation. The Alexandrine tiara is delicate, as if made of rain, with light diamond drops cascading along curved lines. It looks fragile, but there is a certain northern austerity and elegance in it, like a reflection of Margrethe herself in her youth. The young crown princess's first appearance wearing this piece was in 1958 during a state visit to Finland. It was her first official appearance in full court attire, a moment when the 18-year-old girl presented herself to the world as a future queen. It was then that it was first noticed how naturally Margrethe felt in jewelry, calm, restrained, but dignified. The tiara accompanied her at various events long after her accession to the throne. Even as queen, Margrethe occasionally returned to this piece as something personal, unofficial, her own. But in 1995, when her younger son, Prince Joachim, married Alexandra Manley, Margrethe decided to make a gesture as generous as it was symbolic. She gave the tiara to her daughter-in-law. Alexandra wore it at the wedding, and after that, the tiara became her constant companion at official receptions in Denmark and abroad. Even after divorcing Prince Joachim, Alexandra kept the tiara. For the first time in nearly 100 years, it was outside the royal family. When Joachim remarried, Queen Margrethe did not give the tiara to his new wife, Princess Marie, but only lent her the floral tiara of Princess Dagmar on a long-term basis. Perhaps the first experience taught caution. And yet the story of the Alexandrine tiara in the royal house is not over. Alexandra remains part of the family through her sons, Princes Nikolai and Felix. And who knows, perhaps one day this tiara will shine again on one of their future wives, returning the jewelry to its royal roots. Following Denmark, Sweden. There is no strict tradition here to present the first tiara exactly on the 18th birthday. But for Crown Princess Victoria, her coming of age was special. In honor of her birthday, she received her own personal tiara, modest in size but very elegant, with delicate arches and tiny sapphires crowning each swirl. She made her first appearance in the new tiara just a few months later, at the ball celebrating the upcoming wedding of Prince Joachim of Denmark and Alexandra Manley in November 1995. For the evening, she chose a dark blue dress with gold details, and even then, it was clear. Victoria knows how to work with an image. The very next day, at the wedding itself, she appeared again in the same tiara, but in a different outfit, and with a different mood. And, of course, no one could forget her appearance at the Nobel ceremony in December of the same year, the first in her life, a red dress, pearl jewelry, and that very sapphire tiara. Young, a little shy, but already restrainedly regal. However, did the tiara remain part of her public image for long? In fact, no. Just a few years later, Victoria began to appear more often in larger and more prestigious tiaras. At some point, it became clear. The sapphire tiara had gone into the shadows. It was rarely seen after the early 2000s. The last notable appearances were in 2005 and 2007, and since then, silence. Does Victoria keep it as a memento, or is she preparing it for the future queen, her daughter Estelle? Time will tell. Personally, I would very much like to see this tiara again in the future. And now, let's move north to Norway. There, in September 1989, on the occasion of her 18th birthday, Princess Märtha Louise debuted in a tiara. It was a family evening ball at the palace in Oslo, and that evening she appeared before the public, wearing the piece that would become her main jewelry companion for decades. The tiara, with a wheat ear motif made of diamonds and pearls, was a gift from her grandfather, King Olav V. It was a personal gift, given while he was still alive. At that time, he was still on the throne. The piece featured a modern design and miniature proportions, suitable for a young princess. Later, under King Harold V, Märtha Louise periodically performed representative duties. However, in 2002, at the age of 31, she officially ceased to be a working member of the royal family and gave up the title, Her Highness, in order to pursue a private career. Despite this, she continued to participate in family celebrations and major state holidays. The tiara given on her coming of age remains her most frequently worn piece. She has appeared in it at weddings, anniversaries, and diplomatic receptions, including celebrations of her parents' 60th, 70th, and 80th birthdays. Nevertheless, this is not the only tiara in which she has appeared publicly. In 2010, she was seen wearing the amethyst tiara at the wedding of Crown Princess Victoria and Prince Daniel of Sweden in Stockholm, and in 2013, in a reduced version of Queen Maud's pearl tiara at Princess Madeleine's wedding in 2013. But none of these pieces became as closely associated with her as the gift from King Olav. This is the only tiara that officially belongs to her personally. If for Scandinavian princesses debuting in a tiara is a tender and intimate tradition, then in the case of Princess Margaret, everything was different. Louder, bolder, brighter, and of course with a touch of mystery that only deepened over the years. In 1948, shortly after her 18th birthday, the sister of the future Queen Elizabeth appeared in her first tiara, and immediately on the international stage. This happened at the gala show Sporting Fantasy in Amsterdam, organized in honor of the inauguration of Queen Juliana of the Netherlands. Margaret, young, elegant, and confident, outshone almost everyone present that evening. It was then that the public first saw her wearing the diamond lozenge bandeau, an exquisite diamond tiara in the Art Deco style. It is believed that this piece was created by Cartier in the 1910s and belonged to Queen Mary, Margaret's grandmother. The geometric pattern of diamond lozenges framed by pearls created the effect of a delicate, almost architectural filigree. The complex, unusual tiara for the British court was a true find for the eccentric style of the young princess. Rumor has it she received it as a gift from Queen Mary, possibly on her coming of age, although no official confirmation of this has survived. Margaret wore this tiara several more times. On a state visit of the Dutch royal couple in 1950, then on a visit of the Danish delegation in 1951. The last documented appearance dates to 1965, after which the tiara disappeared from the public eye. For decades, its fate remained a mystery. Was it kept in the royal vaults? Or was it sold, like some other pieces of Princess Margaret's jewelry in the 1970s and 80s? There were more questions than answers. And suddenly, in our time, almost 60 years after its last appearance, the tiara surfaced. Where would you think? In Malaysia. At a wedding in the Sultanate of Pahang, it was spotted by a keen royal enthusiast, and after consultation with Queen Aziza, it was confirmed. This was indeed the diamond lozenge bandeau. How exactly the piece ended up in a private Asian collection remains a mystery. But isn't this perfectly fitting for Margaret herself? The free-spirited, independent, informal princess who always went her own way. Her first tiara disappeared as jewels do in a novel, mysteriously, spectacularly, forever, until one day it shines again at a new ball. The next heroine also played a special role in royal history. Only her debut in a tiara did not happen on her coming of age. And where? You may already be guessing. Let us move on to Queen Elizabeth II. Unlike her sister, Princess Margaret, the future Queen Elizabeth II did not make her debut in a tiara at a ball, reception, or international ceremony. Her first appearance in a tiara was different, much more personal, solemn, and fateful. It was her wedding day. On November 19, 1947, at Westminster Abbey, 22-year-old Princess Elizabeth married Philip Mountbatten, and it was on this day that she first wore Queen Mary's fringe tiara, the very one that would later become one of the most recognizable in the British collection. But why did her tiara debut happen so late, 4 years after reaching adulthood? Here, everything is explained by the historical context. Elizabeth turned 18 in 1944 in the midst of World War II. It was a time of restraint, deprivation, and strict economy, even within the royal family. Social balls were cancelled, events were kept to a minimum, and wearing tiaras at such a time, especially for a young princess, was inappropriate. The entire court was focused on supporting the nation, and Elizabeth herself soon joined the auxiliary service, where she learned driving and car repair. Therefore, her tiara debut was postponed until the moment when it became truly appropriate. And that moment was the wedding, a personal celebration that marked not only the union with Prince Philip, but also the return to peaceful life for the entire country. Before the ceremony, one of the most famous jewelry episodes in the history of the royal family occurred. The tiara broke. The central part of Queen Mary's fringe tiara came apart at the fastening, and the piece was rushed to the Garrard workshop. Jewelers, under police protection, managed to restore the tiara before the ceremony began, although in photographs you can notice a slight bend in the central section, a trace of the urgent repair. But what kind of tiara was it? Queen Mary's fringe tiara was created in 1919 from a diamond necklace given to Queen Mary on her wedding day. The design was inspired by Russian kokoshniks, vertical diamond rays on a gold base, the very tiara once worn by Queen Mary, then by the Queen Mother, and now by the young bride, the future queen. This appearance was not only her debut in a tiara, but also the beginning of a new chapter. From this moment on, Elizabeth appeared more and more often in tiaras, orders, and symbols of state. Decades later, this tiara would adorn another royal bride, Princess Beatrice, Elizabeth II's granddaughter. And thus, history would return to the beginning, once again reminding us, in royal families, jewelry is not just diamonds. It is a bridge between generations. And now, as promised at the beginning of the video, a small bonus. A few debuts that are rarely remembered but also deserve attention. Ready? Then stay with me. There is much more ahead. Princess Anne-Marie of Denmark turned 18 in August 1964, and just 2.5 weeks later, she was to marry the young Greek king Constantine II. There was no time for long reflections on growing up. She had to say goodbye to home, country, family, and start a new life in a foreign culture, with a new role and a new title. But before going to Athens, she appeared at a farewell dinner at Fredensborg Palace in her first evening look with a tiara. It was her debut, quiet, almost family-like, but incredibly touching. For this evening, Anne-Marie wore a pearl and diamond tiara created from an antique corsage ornament belonging to her great-grandmother, Queen Victoria of Sweden. This elegant, refined crown became her first official jewelry companion. Since then, this piece has become almost a family talisman. It appeared at celebrations of the Greek royal house and over the years became the wedding tiara of 3 of her daughters-in-law, Marie Chantal, Tatiana, and Nina. If a tiara could have a soul, Princess Madeleine's aquamarine bandeau would surely shine with the calm and light of Swedish lakes. This piece, light, cool, with a transparent blue, became her first official jewelry companion. When Madeleine turned 18 in June 2000, she was gifted an heirloom Art Deco tiara inherited from her step-grandmother, Queen Louise of Sweden. The piece consists of a delicate diamond frame and a large aquamarine in the center, simple yet tasteful. It had previously been worn by other members of the royal family, including Madeleine's aunts. Her first public appearance in the tiara took place in December of the same year at the Nobel Prize ceremony, accompanied by diamond earrings, a bow brooch, and a pendant from the Connaught tiara diamond set. Calm, slightly shy, Madeleine looked like a princess from a Scandinavian fairy tale. In January 2022, when Princess Ingrid Alexandra of Norway turned 18, the country held its breath in anticipation. This was not just a milestone birthday. The heir to the Norwegian throne, great-granddaughter of King Olav V and future queen, was to appear for the first time in full royal regalia, and most importantly, in a tiara. And she did not disappoint. In official portraits for her coming of age, Ingrid Alexandra appeared in a pearl and diamond tiara with circular motifs, elegant and restrained. But behind this simple design was an amazing story. This tiara belonged to Princess Ingeborg of Sweden, grandmother of King Harald V. It was purchased in the early 20th century from Boucheron, after an exhibition in Paris where it was presented as an example of contemporary jewelry art. Later, the tiara passed to Princess Ragnhild, the eldest daughter of King Olav, who lived in Brazil and wore it exclusively at important events. After Ragnhild's death, the tiara returned to Europe. And now, decades later, it appeared again on a representative of the new generation. For Ingrid Alexandra, this was not just a jewelry debut. It was the first step toward a public role, taken with dignity and respect for family history. In the Japanese imperial family, everything is strictly traditional. Every princess, upon reaching 20, the age of majority in Japan, receives an order, official court attire, and, of course, her own tiara. But in the case of Princess Aiko, the only daughter of Emperor Naruhito and Empress Masako, this tradition unexpectedly cracked. In December 2021, celebrating her 20th birthday, Aiko appeared in public for the first time in full ceremonial dress. She wore a delicate diamond tiara, earrings, a necklace, and a bracelet. Everything looked quite traditional. But it was not a new set made especially for her, as was the case with her cousins, Princesses Kako and Meiko. It was a set of jewelry belonging to her aunt, former Princess Sayako, now Mrs. Kuroda. The official explanation was extremely restrained. Due to the pandemic and economic difficulties, the imperial family decided not to commission a new tiara at public expense. A respectful gesture, but still surprising. Because in Japanese tradition, a tiara is not just jewelry. It is a state symbol, a ritual, a confirmation of new status. And the fact that Princess Aiko did not receive her own causes bewilderment, both among the Japanese and fans of the imperial family worldwide. Will a separate tiara be created for her later? The Imperial Household Agency stated that the matter will be considered in the future. Her story in official life is only beginning. And who knows? Maybe one day she will receive a piece of jewelry that will truly be hers alone. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the stories of the first tiaras. We have seen both the grand debuts at state receptions and the touching family moments filled with symbolism and continuity. And now, a little imagination. Imagine that you have the opportunity to choose the first tiara for yourself, for your daughter, for your granddaughter. What would it be? A light bandeau in the Art Deco spirit? A pattern of ears of wheat like Märtha Louise's? Or perhaps something modern with aquamarines, sapphires, or pearls? Share in the comments. I would be very interested to know which style you prefer. If you enjoyed this video, please like it to support the channel. And if you are here for the first time, subscribe so you don't miss new stories about royal jewelry, dynasties, and traditions that continue through the centuries. Until we meet again, and may your life be filled with more light, history, and sparkle.